Thanks for joining us today, guys. It's our session on the pathway to becoming a one-stop shop. It's nice to see a nice mix of people in the room and kind of ideally speaking, and looking at the registration list, there's probably a cohort of builders here, a cohort of architects, suppliers, prospective one-stop shops, and obviously we have a number of registered one-stop shops, which we're hopefully going to learn from today. It's great that we're back at the energy shows. I know we had one last year and stuff, but you can see even as you walk around the hall, people networking and naturally, organically coming up, chatting to each other, and hopefully kind of finding ways where people can work together and enter into different deals. In terms of who's here today from SEAI, myself, I'm a program manager for National Retrofit. We've Helen Williams here, who's the program manager for the one-stop shop support, so she's moving the money out the door as quickly as we can and getting the homes done. Nazia joined us recently, project management expert, all the way from the IMI, and Fanula, who's a practicing architect who's kind of moved into the SEI sphere in terms of deploying SEI grants and so forth. So there's a nice bit of expertise coming into the squad, which is great to see. In terms of what we're here to talk about and the whole one-stop shop principle, and I'm hoping people kind of have a grasp of it. What we're trying to do ultimately is to simplify the whole retrofit journey for homeowners. We did an extensive research prior to launching the scheme and during the development, and a big part of it was they found the process complicated. So what we have is we have an ever-growing network of one-stop shops who specialise in delivering every aspect of the upgrade, from specifying the works, project managing it, the aftercare, and everything in between. So the homeowners and trying to coordinate works and they're not in a space where they're not familiar with, and ultimately that could get them moving away and spending the money elsewhere. We're all familiar with the big picture stuff. We're trying to reduce our carbon emissions by 50%, and the way we have a metric, so that's the real metric, reducing it to, I think it's 50% based on 2020 baseline. But the way we kind of have a tangible metric is 500,000 B2s and 400,000 heat pumps. And that's what we're striving towards. There is challenges out there, and a lot of the speakers today who have kind of stormed the scheme and have done great work and have given us valuable feedback in terms of how we can improve. They've kind of are working through the challenges such as the supply chain issues people are very aware of. The inflation that's currently there, partially due to energy crisis and COVID-19 lags. Even positive things can be, the unemployment rate is at 4%, which is roughly the least it has been in a long time. So that means you aren't getting people who are unemployed to come and work for you. You're going out getting good guys who are currently employed. So that brings a whole level of complexity there as well, and succession planning and so forth. We're trying to get to 500,000 by the end of the decade. And that, I suppose, when we're at full tilt and where we want to be is at 35 to 40,000 homes per year, up to a B2. And with that, we need to get trusted retrofit providers who have quality systems in place. Because if we're dealing with issues, say, on 2% of those 35,000, it just falls flat on its face and it won't work. We need retrofitters in place who are managing all this and driving the highest standards possible in terms of quality, in terms of project management, aftercare, and so forth. And that's what we really strive for when we're looking at potential one-stop shops and what they're offering. In terms of the current position on one-stop shops, we've 12 at the minute. I'm going to be positive, Stephen, here, and aim for, we've 5 very good candidates on the verge of registration. And I'm going to put my, money on the line and say we'll have 17 by the end of June. Okay, and it's looking promising at that. So that's that panel starting to grow. And we want more and more people to come on board, building past 20, which will open up the supply chain, reduce the demand and stress on existing one-stop shops, all trying to manage this huge, absolutely significant interest in upgrading their homes since it was launched in February. We were conscious, when we were thinking about this session, we were saying, you're listening to us all the time in terms of, and what you really need to hear is people who are on the ground managing this successfully and delivering private homes at an increasing rate month by month. So we have 3 excellent speakers organised in Martin McCarthy from Insulux, We have Caroline Ashbrady from Core, and we have David Flannery and Hugh Wallace, architect, representing Electric Ireland Superhome. So it's great that you're coming on board and kind of passing on the knowledge that you've learned over the past 12 months. I suppose just introducing the first kind of guest speaker, Martin. Martin came down from Cork today on the train, so I commend you for your sustainability in terms of your approach to getting here, mode of transport. So Mark is the Managing Director of Insulux, founded in '94. It was originally a specialist contractor and transitioned to various types of insulation and became known as the go-to man in Munster. So up the rebels, Martin. Today, there are a select few companies who are approved as a registered one-stop shop, and they manage the whole process from end to end. And their aim is they specialise in taking old, cold homes, which have a BR rating of F or even G, and transforming them into warm, cosy, and efficient homes with a focus on renewable energy systems, which is excellent. And I was scouting around their website last night, and I said I have to. He'd nicely placed a very few good customer feedback posts. And one of them was, I could not recommend, from a homeowner in, I think it was Galway, I could not recommend Insulux enough. The highly, one-stop shop service was delivered at a high standard. From the minute I contacted them about the home energy upgrade, we went full steam ahead and got the project done without any glitches. Everything was project managed down to the specified dates, and all timelines were kept to. The quality of the work and efficiency of the service was excellent. We would recommend anyone doing a home energy upgrade to contact Insulux. So that was a bit of good news there, Martin. Well done. You're doing something right. So, yeah, exactly. Do you want to take the stage? So Martin from Insulux. Oh, actually, Martin, can you give me 2 seconds? I just want to introduce the agenda. Sorry about that, I got ahead of myself. The agenda for today, so we'll have Martin up now in a minute. Electric Ireland Superhomes then will come on board, and that'll be a joint presentation between David and Hugh. Looking forward to hearing that. We'll have a questions and answers session after that, because I'm just conscious people might have to head off at about 3:30 or so. So if you can kind of think of questions from Martin's presentation and David and Hugh's presentation that you might want to ask them during that session. Then we'll have Caroline up giving us 25 minutes, half an hour on Core Retrofit Limited. I'll come on board then and give a few successful tips for successful registration. We've kind of reviewed about 35 strategic plans to date, so we've pulled together the top 8 to 10 tips that people should be focusing on, and then we'll have a question and answer session then after that. Hopefully that'll bring us to 4 o'clock. Okay, for the second time round, Martin.
Get it to go back here a second. Okay. Hi, folks. So, as you know, my name is Martin McCarthy, and I'm with a company called Insulux. We've been involved in one-stop shops for many years now. So, I think back in 2012, we had it up on our website, Insulux One-Stop Shop Provider. So, it's nothing new for us. The big issue for us was actually getting on board with the SEAI and getting over the line of the paperwork and the quality control and all those issues and getting staff to do that. So I'm going to go through it today with you. I'll try and go through the opportunities, the challenges and solutions, and what we're facing in upscaling. So if we look at the opportunities we've had and we feel we're going to have, is we're scaling the company in line with existing values. So one-stop shop has always been our value. We've always said that, look, retention followed by generation, followed by renewable, in that order. We will never change from those values. It's a little bit, I've used analogies before of, if you have a tire in a car and you have 5 nails in the tire and you fix 3, you can have the best air pump pumping air into the tire, but it's still flat. So I stand over retention first, follow that by a generation system. If your generation is low, and you follow that by a renewable system of generating electricity to counteract that, you pretty much become carbon neutral. So you're off the grid. And that's what we have set up, and that's what we've started, and thankfully the SEAI have taken us on board and we can follow through with it. So to do that, some of the stuff we've had to do is, we got part of ISO last year, and already that's making a huge difference to the company. We're setting up standards, we're setting up procedures, we've got quality control coming in. It's improving the profile of our company. We're up here now, we're talking to you. Like 10 years ago, you'd be talking to us, so it's making a big difference on that side. It's improving the quality of our projects. Again, as I said, we've been doing one-stop shops for a long time, but we never did the full package. It was always piecemeal. Let's wrap a house, don't do the windows. Let's internally dry line, don't do the windows. Let's do a dormer bungalow, don't do the upstairs. It's not good enough anymore. We need to take on the retention process as a whole. The staff are really starting to enjoy the project now. They have a future, there's a roadmap, we all know where we're going, we all know what we're doing, and hopefully we're going to get more staff. That's going to be what I'm talking about a lot today. They're starting to get job satisfaction out of turning G houses into A2s. We've had some A1s. We just recently finished a house there. It was a 200-year-old stone house. It's an A1 rated house now. Can be done. It's all about budget. It's all about what you do. So we're seeing the building of the awareness outside. And I remember I was talking to the staff there a few years ago, or a few weeks ago. Back in 2011 and 2009, we were up here at the Ideal Homes exhibition, and we had a stand here. And our sole message that time was external insulation. The amount of people that were coming down, what's that? Poking it, fixing it. What does it do? Where can I use it? Now that question is never asked. So the awareness of the one-stop shop is moving at a much faster pace than external wall insulation. People are getting the message, and that's coming down to the SEAI and everybody else in the retrofit market as well, spreading the word. It's about one package fixes all. The opportunity to employ more people locally. We're rural. We're based in a rural area. So talking to the people we have employed, they're so thankful not to have to drive into the city 20 miles away for work. So they're not commuting 2 hours each way and out to work. We can keep them in the rural area. I don't tell them they might have to travel 50 miles to see a job, but and by doing that, we're keeping people in the local community. They're not immigrating. They're not going to Australia, which was happening in 2010, 12, and 14. And above all else, it's helping to keep a cleaner energy, keep a cleaner environment for all of us. And I'm going to speak on that a little bit, and I was thinking about that last night, is what can you say about that? And I remember when I was a child, I live in a very rural area next to a river. And as a child, I used to sit on the bank of that river, and I could see the bottom of the river. It was so blue. There was people coming from all over the area fishing in that river, fishing for bass, salmon, you name it, they were fishing in it. Today, if you had a boat in that river, within an hour, there'd be 2 inches of scum on the side of the boat. That's not good enough. I have grandchildren. I want them to go back and enjoy that river again. So we all have a duty to bring this on board. It's not about the one-stop shop. It's not about things. We all have a duty to do a little bit to bring it back. So externally, we need to, with the reassuring that to know that the work is being done, it's going to help reduce carbon emissions. We're going to be part of something that matters and build better homes. This is basically tied in with building better homes, building extensions, retrofitting homes. It's about doing it right now. Insulation, ventilation, heat, they all matter. They all have to be done together. So pretty much all of this is like you have awareness of renewable energy sources, improving people's lives and their comforts. This can be life-changing. The word comfort, it's not on the SEAI websites. It's not on basically any retrofit package. But it's probably the most important thing to people. If you ask people when they're making the first phone call, one of the first questions we'll ask them is, why do you want to do it? And it's never about the grant. The real people are not doing it for the grant. They're doing it because they want to be more comfortable in their house. They don't want to be paying huge heat bills, but above all else, they want to be comfortable. And that's the big message that we're sending out. We do all these things for you. You're going to be comfortable in your house. You're not going to be getting up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning and looking for an overcoat to walk around the kitchen. You know, you're going to be comfortable in your house. And that's the real buzzword. And again, it's future-proofing for your generations. If we can do a little bit, and if the next person does a little bit, and my children do a little bit, and my grandchildren do a little bit, eventually we get there. How do you move this on? So the challenges. In the last 12 months, we've gone from zero to hero and back again, right? So the volatility of the cost of materials in the last 12 months has been scary, as Caroline will be proof to the fact there in a minute. We've had unbelievable price hikes in materials. The availability of materials. It's great for energy assessors to come out to a house and say, oh, I need to achieve 0.2 on a sloped ceiling. And then you're looking at a sloped ceiling. That means an 82 mil insulated slab on the ceiling, but there's a door in the way. How are we going to get in there? There's nothing else to fit it. What do we do? It's so rigid you can't bend it, you know, so it created a lot of challenges on that. And this is probably our biggest issue and our biggest worry, and I think if you take anything from my messages here today, this is the one thing. Who's going to do all this work? I'm asking everybody here, where's the new staff coming from? The average age of the workforce in the UK, Karen just told me, or somebody told me there a while ago, is 55. It's 47 in Ireland. They're all crippled. Where's the new people? Where are the young people? Stephen, I know you said, look, we're going to have 17 new one-stop shops and we're going to be building and building. One-stop shops are no good without people on the ground to do the work. And that's not good enough to say, let's do a retrofit course for 10 days and send them out into people's houses to do a retrofit job. Retrofit job is highly skilled. The traditional skills that we have are plastering, block laying, carpentry. They're individual skills. I'm going back and giving away my age. When I trained as a builder. The difference is I can do all of those, and to be a retrofit specialist, you need to have a huge knowledge of all those items together, plus you need to understand the ventilation, then you need to understand the technical guidance documents, then you need to understand the SEAI requirements. You're not going to learn that in 10 days. There need to be proper training academies set up, and I think we need to go back to our schools. And we need to tell our young people in the schools, it's okay to become a tradesperson. You don't have to go to college. You know, that is vital. We are going to die a death over the next 10 years if we don't start getting tradespeople working for us. If you look on the CIF critical lists, you can go anywhere in the world and bring in critical. They're engineers, they're architects, they're everybody. They're not tradespeople. We're already seeing it, because what I'm doing, I'm robbing people off Caroline. Caroline is robbing them off me. SSE or Tricity are robbing them off somebody else. We're all using the same pool of people because they're just not there. So if we want to build 500,000 retrofits, and if we want to do what today and Ryan say, 1 million houses, who's going to do it? This message needs to get across, and it needs to get across loud and clear, because we are going to struggle. So, as I said, the upscaling to meet demand, we've got to continue learning, training, and upskilling. What can help in-house, which will take away a lot of the issues, which is specifically with the SEAI and the quality control, is more technology, making use of technology and software. Providing clear protocols for each step of the way. And traditionally, it's easy enough to pump cavity walls, and you know if you have a 100 mil cavity, fill it up, you may have to put a 25. They're easy calculations to make. You can calculate your windows. It's when you start hitting slope ceilings and roofs, and you're trying to get to a U value of 0.2, and you tell your client, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to pull every single plasterboard down off this roof. You're going to have to put 50 mil, not a PIR board won't do you anymore. You're going to have to use phenolic or something with a low conductivity, and you're going to have to put a 62 mil insulated slab in it. Who's going to do that work? So we got to get the right answers for what is going to work. We've got to get our home energy assessments much more under control. It's slowing down the process too much altogether. And if we can get those points, like from the customer's journey from a home energy assessment to where they actually get the job started, is very, very labor intensive. And it's one of the big problems we have is like, we get a client, they phone up, they're interested, they want to go ahead. Okay, we get a home energy assessment done. We send out a BER assessment. We'll do a dwelling report. Then we have to do another dwelling report. We'll do a technical report. Then we basically create a home energy assessment and costing. And then they change their mind. It's months to get a client over the line. Because what you don't want to do, and definitely what I think Stephen doesn't want to hear us, or Helen or any of you want to hear of us, start the process and then say, can we change the grants? You know, so it must be correct from the very start. My analogy of one-stop shop is never going to change, as I said. Heat retention. If you can get the air tightness of your house to as low as you possibly can get it, whatever it takes, then you're in a situation to start talking to your clients about generating heat. Air-to-water heat pumps, air-to-air heat pumps, ground source heat pumps, whatever is needed. I never worry too much about it because if the retention is so good, you won't need to generate too much. So if you do step one, followed by step two, then you talk about the renewables, your solar PVs and all the other stuff. The clients have a very, very comfortable home. We've left the successful jobs like that testimonial is there. And I think everybody is happy. But that's a big ask. Okay, thank you.
Excellent, Martin. Thanks for that. That was absolutely brilliant. Real valid points as well in terms of the supply chain. Like we're hearing that consistently across the board. People haven't been living under stones for the past 3 or 4 years. They know there's an issue there in the market. In terms of what we're trying to do, what we can do, like it's a cross-government effort in terms of trying to increase the supply chain and move people forward. We're trying to, I suppose, talk to you today and say the commitment is there from the government. There's 8 billion there assigned to hit these 500,000 retrofit targets. 500,000 retrofit targets. And that's the commitment, and that there's policy underlying that. So no matter who comes in government, that requirement will still be there. There'll be no deviation from that path. Okay, so that should give you the confidence to direct your business towards retrofitting, give you the confidence to take on workers directly, train them up on the basis that you're getting leads and you feel there's a pipeline of work there for 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 years' time. In parallel to this, there's initiatives happening from the side, and they're well underway in terms of driving the apprenticeship numbers to 2025. It'll be 10,000 apprenticeships per year by 2025. But that's no good for the here and now, Martin. We hear you there fully. And what do we do in those scenarios? All we can try and do is angle people towards retrofit, give the assurances that the government, SEAI, have to put the necessary incentives in place to get people thinking and moving towards retrofitting their homes. They're calling yous are busy, and yous have that assurance to take people on directly and build the market yourself. So you have a subcontractor avenue of delivering work, but you're also succession planning and building your direct employees as well. So that's a bit, but it's a key point. You've hit on items there. And I think during the crash, there was so many tradespeople left going abroad, moving to different skills and trades and so forth, that it just has a knock-on effect. And parents who kind of went through that are probably directing their kids elsewhere, to banking, to IT, and so forth. We have to get to a stage where, in 2 or 3 years' time, retrofitting is where ICT is now, and pharma, who are thriving at the minute. But on top of that, what we have over that is that the government has to drive this along as well with the necessary incentives and reinforcing that commitment that we're going to be assigning these 25, 30k grants per home and so forth. So excellent. Thanks a million for that, Martin. So moving on then to our next one-stop shop. So Electric Ireland Super Homes is a one-stop shop which looks after the whole energy retrofit from the design to completions and the management of the SEAI grant funding. They engage leading contractors, experienced retrofitters to offer you expert advice through often complex processes. And we had our first QBR with Electric Ireland Super Homes 2 or 3 weeks ago. We were talked through the different 3 strands that they worked through. And one of those strands was that whole consultancy arm, where they're trying to bring in the whole architect, homeowner, builder, and one-stop shop. And they're trying to master that whole relationship and drive through homes. It could be very easy to leave that at the side and look at the low-hanging fruit, the simple upgrades. But that's not, there's leads coming through in those areas. So they've grasped that nettle and tried to master it, and they're working through it very well. So hence, it's great to have them here today to talk to that. You only have to look through Electric Ireland Super Homes websites to see the great work they've done over the past number of years. I think there must be 16 to 18 case studies up there, which are really professionally presented, and they're focusing on these E's, F and G homes and giving them a new life, upgrading the fabric. And all these homes, they've one thing in common: they look brand new at the end of it, and the homeowner's delighted. So it's great to have David Flannery from the Electric Ireland Super Homes today. And also we've Hugh Wallace, the award-winning architect. He's going to dispel some knowledge in terms of the whole retrofit process and how it kind of dovetails nicely in with his practice and how his work with Electric Ireland Super Homes is evolving and so forth. You might know Hugh from Bungalow Bliss, the Great House Revival, and I think it was Room to Improve. Was it, Hugh? Definitely not. Okay, so David, if you want to... take it. You did. It was either one or the other. He told me to say that, Hugh. He told me to say that.
Am I sitting down?
Whatever way you want to look.
Yeah, so it's the wrong one on. Hello, it's a pleasure to be here today. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, SEAI, for inviting us. And in the context of the pathway to becoming an OSS, at Electric Ireland Super Homes, I suppose we've been modelling or trialling out a one-stop shop approach since 2015. So we'd have a diverse range of services and expertise within that as we trialled it, and through trial and error, and finding the best ways to progress different types of projects. We're going to give we're going to have a bit of discussion, a presentation on how we do what we call consultancy projects. Now, a consultancy project, maybe just to start off with, is distinct from many of our projects, where we would bring in a contractor, one of our own contractors, who would be approved to ourselves, would have necessary skill base, would have a lot of energy upgrades carried out successfully. Whereas a consultancy project really is one, and the primary motivation for customers for a standard home energy retrofit is, well, there might be some remodeling or there might be some renovation aspect to it, but primarily it's got to do with saving energy, meeting the criteria of the grants, achieving the grants, making a warmer, more comfortable home. Now, when we talk about consultancy projects, we're talking about projects really where there's a new build renovation aspect to it. So typically that's going to be an extension. Now, it might be an attic conversion, it might be an old house that was dilapidated and now is being renovated with an energy upgrade or retrofit as part of that, but not necessarily the prime motivator, and certainly not the only motivator for the customer. So a consultancy project for us is going to involve a team where we become the consultants on it. We offer access to grants, but more than that, because it's not just about the grants, as Martin pointed out. It's about quality, it's about decarbonisation, it's about a successful project that has the energy retrofit element worked out in advance, carefully planned and delivered, and someone with an exclusive focus on doing that. So I think I might speak for a lot of architects who wouldn't maybe have the level of deep analysis or energy retrofit within their firm or themselves. They may often do something like, when it comes to windows, they may do triple glaze, and they may insulate the floor because insulating the floor is better than not, and may pump the cavity, but also do internal wall insulation because it's there's better insulation value to doing that. And they may, to some extent, spec very highly, but do so on the basis of those individual measures. Now, what we do is we will say, well, if you do X, Y, and Z, you will achieve the standards. The standards are very high. But there may be some options in that. So you can reduce, for instance, the amount of insulation internally that you do, so long as you do triple glazed windows. Maybe not do the floor, and save some money in doing that, so long as you do something somewhere else. So the type of expertise that we and our team bring to a project is that sort of certainty that what you're doing is going to not just deliver the type of home and efficiency that you want, but will achieve the grant standards, and we will focus on that. So it's an element that we bring to a project which it often isn't there. Now, a lot of engineering firms and architecture firms are bringing that on board, but I suppose what we're saying today is that kind of combination with a one-stop shop focused on the consultancy and the delivery of the energy side of stuff, with an architectural contracting team can work very well. And this year we plan to do somewhere in the region of 150 houses using that particular model. I'm also conscious that I'm not an architect, so I'm speaking for architects in a way based on their feedback. And that's why we have Hugh here today, and he's going to come in and set me straight on a few things possibly, or support some of the things that we're saying. And he knows our model and our delivery inside out. So we're going to talk about the things as we go along.
All right.
Yes, indeed.
Just to say, from my point of view as an architect, detailing and knowledge which needs to be brought to a project now is so advanced even in 5 years. And therefore, it's very important that you engage with a company like Electric Island Superhomes at a very early stage, because they will actually assist you in the design detail of where the problem starts. One of the biggest problems is when the wall meets the roof and how you get your air tightness. And there are solutions to that. But it's about knowing that information from the offset is so important. And that's why I've enjoyed my journey with Electric Island Superhomes, because they come in early, they assess what you're doing, and give you different solutions. So not one size doesn't fit all. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I mean, a common question people will say as well, how much is my retrofit going to cost? And it's trying to avoid how long is a piece of string. That's the answer, but then you have to quantify how long the piece of string is for people that are going to have no idea. The difference between even across the road from each other, one renovation project, across the road there's another one, but they happen to be built 5 years apart slightly differently. There can be a 20,000 or 30,000 difference in that. And even in a estate that would have been built at the exact same time in the 1970s and 1980s, we're very familiar, they all would have changed over time. Some would have an extension, some would have new windows, some would have an attic conversion. So even in an estate that once would have been all the same, they're very homogeneous, now they're all different, and you require a different solution for each and a different sort of cost estimate for people so they can see the best pathway for themselves. So there are lots of options.
Just on the, we get asked a lot in terms of what's the cost of upgrades, types of houses, things like that. We've a lot of good data in the system now. Like 600 actual costs on the system that you kind of break down and interrogate and just give people an idea of the range and scale. Out of about 120 detached homes that were upgraded, the cost of work is in the order of 62K. on the air tightness and those junctions you talk about, Hugh and David. The detailing is excellent there, but trades have to be educated on how to do it right. And that's where the whole supply chain item comes in terms of supply chain has to be educated. And there's huge efforts in terms of having these education training reports. One named Lucas, Wexford, and more. Continuous groups going down there getting skilled in how to install these air tightness membranes, tapes and joints on an ongoing basis. So it goes hand in hand in terms of the advanced detailing. It's key, as you know well, it has to be done correct on site.
Absolutely, and this year we'll be working with over 100 contractors, and it is helping with detailing and inspiring a bit of confidence in the contractor that what they're doing is right, because it may be their first project in this area. And air tightness is a good example where it's as common to overspec air tightness and to render it very expensive, whereas actually there might be easier solutions to do that. But it could be hard if it's your first project involving air tightness. You may want to overcompensate just to ensure you get a good result. Whereas if you do have a good expert there with you, they can let you know that what you're doing actually is the proper order and the proper amount of taping, sealing, etc. So I want to provide a little bit of detail here today while keeping the progress. I know we have architects and contractors in the audience. But at the same time, giving an overview of what it is and maybe a word or two of advice for any prospective one-stop shops as well about what's involved, some of the opportunities and some of the difficulties which come with the territory, despite the fact that there has been a lot of progress made in the scheme over the last while. So a little bit about ourselves. Obviously aware of Electric Ireland, largest utility in the country, and Superhomes, something that was initiated by Tipperary Energy Agency in about 2015, and kind of starting from 7 trial homes, working through the deep retrofit program in SEAI, establishing itself as a one-stop shop before the one-stop shop scheme was established formally, and getting ourselves ready for this. So we merged in 2020. We created a new entity in 2021, Electric Ireland Superhomes, and our plan is to deliver 35,000 homes between now and 2030. We're not entirely sure how we're going to do that. That's quite a challenge. But what we can see is that we take an approach where working from 100 last year to 200 this year, to 500, and then up to 1,250. You see there's a big sort of steep improvement there over the next 2-3 years, and that's getting the whole way up to 7,000-8,000 a year. And what we know from that is that we have to have variety. So anyone who can and is in a position to do a retrofit, we have to be in a position to service them, okay? Because not everyone is in the position, financially or life cycle or house cycle issues that may prevent them from doing that. So to get anywhere near these figures and the 500,000, the range of services to enjoy the benefits of the one-stop shop scheme and grants needs to be very diverse and inclusive so that we can get anywhere near those figures that we're talking about there. And importantly, keeping the quality as high as possible, so not diluting the product in order to achieve the targets that's set out. So fundamental to us is a heat pump, decarbonising your home, the economy and society. So we've been working with heat pumps since 2015. Well, 2015 is the last time that we installed or worked in a house with a boiler. So we've been fairly pioneering in that respect. There's some of the steps in a one-stop shop journey. There's a lot in it, okay, the whole way from advice at the start, to speccing out works, be yours, tendering the works, bringing in contractors, overseeing the works, inspecting them, looking after the project management aspect, and also the grants, and then at the end making sure everything's compliant and the grants are paid out. The last aspect of that is the finance. So last year was the first year we could actually take away the grant from the cost of works, deduct it so that the homeowner doesn't have to do that, helps with the cash flow. What that means for a one-stop shop, though, is that you need a higher degree of cash flow available, and you need that sort of investment there in order to do that. So that's something for any prospective one-stop shop to think about.
That's a very important aspect. It's the ability to assist in catchment. And what you're providing is quite unique, and it's very important if we're to actually see homes getting retrofit.
Indeed, and so like the buck stops at the one-stop shop. So the onus is on the delivery of the project to achieve the grant, of which one-stop shop has already outlaid. Notwithstanding the improvements there has been in the payment system of SEAI in order to really to narrow that gap. So just a quick slide on our services in electric garden super homes. So I suppose our standard bearer, our flagship, where we would have originated in 2015, is in our whole house approach. So everything we do is whole house, right? So it's taking treating the home as a system. Okay, I know Martin spoke a little bit about that. Gone are the days, I suppose, where really the best practice is about doing an element here and an element there. It's about seeing how it all works together. And at least seeing if that's something that can be done at the same time. Not always feasible from a cost point of view, but that's the ideal. Heat pump plus is something which we're looking at 500,000 homes in the country are heat pump ready or almost heat pump ready. They require a different solution. That's a market segment in itself, and it's a homeowner need that's different. People aren't as cold. The bills aren't as high. There's different motivations there for people to make the switch to a heat pump versus retaining or upgrading their oil boiler or gas boiler, and that needs a different approach and a different service provided for that. And what we're talking about today is consultancy projects. So I won't spend too much time on this slide, only to say that's how we view the ideal retrofit as being a systemic approach to the home. And that's going to be about how the house breathes, air tightness, ventilation, heat provision, and I suppose the last part of the ingredient, if all of those elements are in place, with then a renewable energy dimension, if the budget extends to that, can complete the picture. And so some of the financial reasons for and incentives for going down the one-stop shop approach versus single measure grants. So single measure grants are available. They can be the best approach to go sometimes. But the benefits of the one-stop shop and whole house approach, you can see there. So there's a culmination of about 17 or 18,000 euro in grants that you could achieve, potentially, if you do everything together as part of the one-stop shop approach. So things like windows, doors, ventilation, air tightness, none of these things are supported as single measures. However, they are supported as part of the whole house approach. So for a lot of people, that's going to mean the difference between 10 or 12 or 14,000 in grant funding and potentially 28, 30, 32,000 in grant funding. So some homes will see that a difference that's quite large, and other homes will see the difference not so huge. But that's the incentive there to do it together. Also, the project management contribution, the last one I have an asterisk, it's not a direct payment to the homeowner, but it is something that's put into the project fund, so you get a better service, and you get a dedicated engineer, and you get a better retrofit as a result. I think what that probably illustrates is that there's a lot of steps in a one-stop shop consultancy approach. So first and foremost, I suppose, any architects that might be interested in this, the first thing I suppose is that there's a client, that client is engaged. What we have found is that rather than doing analysis of someone's home as and when it changes, because there might be different iterations of the one project, 4 sets of drawings over time, maybe change mind on certain aspects, scale back. So what we would say is when you get to the stage where your drawings are settled, and you have, I know you will have seen this many, many times, right?
Here I'm on second on 6, I'm on drawing 7. There we go. Iteration 6. But those things happen.
And so everything changes, right? And so like, if you're getting energy advice, it's best to have the complete picture, right? The finalized drawings so far as possible, and then you get some advice on that. And what it means is you're cutting down on costs, because you're not paying an architect multiple times. You're not paying the energy advisor or the BR assessor multiple times in order to run the rule over a changing design. Planning permission is already in place. The project is more or less ready to go. And that's what makes our professional fees affordable. We can keep them down because the project is more or less going ahead. If it's at a much earlier stage, it's a different type of advice that you need. And that's usually through the architect with experience in that as well to get it to this point here. What's key, and we'll address later on, is the message I know SEAI trying to get out there as quick as possible, because the worst thing can happen is you start works and then you look into these grants and you find you can't get them because you haven't got a BER. So it's key to have a BER before work starts. That's your baseline, and that's the key to unlocking any of the grants that you get after that as well. So we're keeping that to the foremost of your mind. And at that point, you engage us. And we run the rule over the project. We do our pre-works, we do our BER on the house as is. We do our post-works BERs. If you do this, this is what you're going to achieve. This is the level of grant funding you're going to get. And so long as everything kind of follows that plan, well then the BER at the end will say that, and the grants will be paid out, and your home will be as you planned. Work start. The grant is paid via ourselves, from SEAI via ourselves. That's a real benefit for the homeowner, customer, client, who will then see that taken off their cost of works. That might be the difference between a particular architectural detail or finishing off everything at once, or kitchen, or whatever it might be. That 25,000, which is deducted from the cost of works, is a real benefit of being part of the one-stop shop scheme.
Yeah, and just to say that, you know, what fascinates me about the whole grant system, but also the installation, is that everything is moving at a pace really fast. So all of a sudden, other things are coming in, roof panels, which are getting so much better. You know, the fact that one of the big issues now at the moment is storage of electricity, being able to get that. So we have a client at the moment, he was a Tesla car, and he got the bathroom from underneath it. So now he has a storage facility which will last 3 days. So I just think that because we have a different mindset over all this, I think changes that are going to take place will be really very quick. I think that heat pumps will become so much, better. It's like, dare I say the word, but I didn't say that. So I just think that the whole thing is going to move at pace. If I may just make 2 comments. So I'm doing a talk tomorrow to the Hardware Association and making the same comment. So one of my issues is that the government had a back grant back, probably in 2010, and that to me was a very beneficial grant. And I think it would be worth investigating if that grant could be available again, particularly for retrofits. Because if you like, the government are giving you an amount of money in one hand, you have to double it, but you have to pay the back of the other. I think that's one thing that would be worth investigating.
In terms of getting that equilibrium between the cost of a gas boiler and the cost of a heat pump, minus the background, what the balance is. So there's a reasonable equilibrium there where the homeowner make a decision and say, okay, I might pay an extra amount of money, but I'm getting X, Y, Z benefit from it.
And then the other thing that needs to be reviewed, and I don't think there's an answer, is for buildings pre-1915 with stone walls, and how you resolve being able to maximize the benefit of the grant, which is there. So, and
I don't know if you're right on that one, and we're coming under more and more. There's that cohort of homeowner that's rightly approaching us, saying we live in these pre-1940 homes and you can't get grant aid for breathable insulation. So the structure remains healthy, breathable, acts the way it's designed to act. So currently, I suppose this year we're hoping to push out the pilot program, start that whole process, because our fear is that these homes are getting retrofitted with modern insulation solutions, and they can't, they shouldn't be. So these structures can't breathe. And we have to step in and inform the supply chain on this. And there's a good talk tomorrow on it, I'm fully subscribed, and just shows the level of interest in terms of the way you're thinking as well on the subject. When you book in for it, I think it can be very beneficial. But that's definitely an avenue that we have to unlock
And it's a really good example of how something can be, it's not paradoxically, but with two sides of the coin, something can be very good from an energy point of view. Because you can put your standard insulation onto a stone wall. From an energy point of view, it's going to work really well, right? But from a building health point of view, it's not going to succeed at all. So you can, as an instance maybe where you can actually work together with a good consultant and an architect, with an architect looking after the building health and the energy consultant looking after what you can actually apply to that then successfully to either achieve the standards or achieve the grants. Most of those times do the same thing, but not always. So you can see a stone house, and I've been involved in it, where a heat pump has been put in, the whole house grant has been got, not for the walls, which were lime and cork, but for the rest of it as well. So we found a way, but obviously with the pilot scheme, it's going to be it's going to help in that respect a lot as well. So I suppose it shows how a collaborative approach sometimes can unlock better outcomes that wouldn't be obvious or apparent at the start. So,
Can I just have some quick things?
Yes.
In relation to the vacant property grant, can you avail of it? And yes, you can. I think you need to put that out.
Yeah.
People don't know that. They think one or the other, and I think it would be very important. But that's probably if it's a vacant house. Rather than
that's great. So
The key item there is that the local authority is aware of it, and I suppose people aren't getting funded twice, same elements and so forth. It needs to be transparency, but you're dead right. If you go for that grant, particular measures, they can go for the SEAI grant, particular measures,
so they can't get the windows twice.
No.
Fine. I do think but
But that needs to be, there needs to be clear lines there. There needs to be clear lines there.
Whereas I get my grant for my walls through the vacant property grant funding. So I'm just saying that's a huge opportunity.
and the expertise and the grants and the way that you can combine them like that has moved on an awful lot as well. So what you can see from this approach, I suppose, and going back to the question about how we train or how we educate professionals by working with 100 by this type of approach and a sort of dedicated approach to working with contractors, is that you're actually educating and you're training and you're showing them what it is to achieve compliance on paper for the schemes to the highest standards as well that you can. So likewise with architects as well. So some of the auxiliary benefits of this, not just for the homeowner, is that it builds up the knowledge base. And hopefully those contractors that are doing one this year as part of a consultancy, so next year doing 4 or 5, or see their future or within the retrofit, grant-funded retrofit industry. Just briefly enough, I suppose, I touched on some general rules and regulations and advice in relation to projects where there is a new build. Get your BER in early. If it's within 12 months from the start of the project, or specifically the application for grant funding, that's valid. So check it out, make sure that that's in good order. Project is substantially ready to go. Bring it to that stage, or come to us when it's at that stage. If you're not sure if you're at that stage, get in touch with us and we can let you know by assessing your project where it is and its status. Critically, I suppose, is that through the one-stop shop, the buck stops with the one-stop shop. So, while we're doing this we're advertising and we're conveying the story on a consultancy basis, we are responsible for the delivery of the energy retrofit. There's a high degree of inspection, notwithstanding that we have to bring it to the inspection standard regardless. Okay, so it has to be, there's nowhere to hide in this program. So ultimately it comes down to the one-stop shops to deliver. Now a contractor might see that in one way or the other. They may see it as an impediment that they don't want to take on. But I think anyone who's truly looking for quality, and likewise the homeowner and architect, will see this as the final seal of approval on a project. as well, though of course some of those inspection points can be hard to satisfy, but it will guarantee at the end that it meets probably the highest finish criteria or inspected criteria for any scheme in the country. The PDSB and PCCS, so all the responsibility have to be, like any project, that needs to be organised far in advance. And ongoing, so with all the research that SEAI carried out into what the customer wants from the one-stop shop approaches, like a single point of contact, not strictly speaking true, because there's multiple points of contact in any project, but they know who they can go to if things aren't working out, and that there's somebody there at any one stage. Might be different people for different parts of the journey, but there's always someone they can call, and that's critically important for the customer, that they know that they don't get lost. Things get lost in the process. Anyone who wants to be part of the scheme would need to make themselves available for inspections and for interim inspections and final inspections. They would also, I suppose, want to be happy enough to provide us with all the compliance material as well, certificates and things like that as well. So we act as the wallet for the grant compliance measures and collect that which needs to be collected. And run the rule over if you're an architect and you're not sure if we're going to use these windows or not, or if the certificate is valid, we'll check that for you. I think finally, we'll say we have an incentive for a partner architect. There's a reason for that. We are looking for people to work with on multiple project basis. Reason for that is clear. It makes it easier for everyone when they're familiar with what's required, with the process. With our team, you get a dedicated engineer and advisor to work with you on your projects. There's an incentive there in relation to lower fees and a fast track towards applications and grants. And we have 7 or 8 partner architects at the moment, and that's growing. And there's a clear benefit for anyone wanting to be involved in that. The obligations are to work with us on providing these key documents when we need to produce them, so that it cuts down on our work. And there's one image to finish off of one of our projects to the front of it, looking exactly like a home energy retrofit, and to the rear of it, new build, and that probably illustrates what we're trying to achieve by providing that service, new build, combined with home energy retrofit. So.
Yeah, that to me is where there's going to be a huge crossover between trying to get the existing building up to a standard that it can be as efficient or nearly as efficient as the new build. And that's where the challenges are.
Better than new, right?
Yes.
That's great.
Thank you. Just pause there to see if anyone has any questions so far. With the view of Mark. People might have to head off, so if they want to ask specific questions at this stage of the session.
For any of you, I suppose the thing you particularly we hear much about the huge amount of demand there is, and I was wondering from the inspector's perspective, when you first registered, was that an issue for you, or how do you handle that? Was it a challenge, or
Yeah, it is. It was an issue at the start, but to be fair to Stephen, they preempted that issue for us. So we actually hired a call center.
It's good for some stuff.
Yeah, we hired a call center for to start the process, and then basically we set up templates, and they basically filtered out, because it's pretty much, how long is it actually? 12 months now? Yeah. For the first 6 or 8 months, it's like when I was saying about the external wall insulation. What is it? How do we do it? Where do we? What's the price range? These were all the questions that we're asking. So you're probably looking at an 80-20 trade-off of inquiries to actually people who are genuine into contracts. Where now that has dropped off a lot, and I think Karen would say this as well. Pretty much coming about 60-40, where there's much more of, even though they might go and not put a full one-stop shop, and it's one of the things we're constantly saying to people, it's okay if you can't make it all together right now, but at least aim for it. That if you can't get the heat pump in this year, we might not qualify, but you can go the individual measures, Don't
I think the statistic there increases, is it 5% per the BR increase? Some sort of statistic there, so there is a monetary value associated with it, of course.
I have a question for Dave. Just wondered what changes you would make to your offering, or you would ask SEAI to make to the structure to try and get closer to the 35,000 target for 2030.
Great question.
Focus on your offering.
There's a bit of push and pull, right? So on one hand, like, there is a level of high standards to reach. There's a lot in the system, I suppose, is quite costly. So one party would like things to be more simple, right? More straightforward, hence, I suppose, less issues to contend with when you're taking on retrofit, but you're also mindful at the same time that the industry can only survive and thrive if the quality is high. So that's something you can't fall at too much. So I commend the fact that the quality is being kept at a high level. Things probably we would have reflected back would be some learning of some of the things like home energy assessment, things like that, where there's a doubling up of some of the work that's going on. We have our own engineers. There's also external home energy assessments. We, as a company that does everything in-house, we rely on our own people really to make the best assessments. Whereas sometimes the home energy assessment format might not actually match what we do ourselves. So I would say it's more of a learning of some of those kinks. But finding a lot of those kinks does make it less efficient from our point of view than it could be. But a lot of it will also trust you that we were advancing at this type of model for a lot of time. So
Can I just interrupt there, Dave? Just for just to keep on schedule a touch, we'll have another Q&A just after the next presentation or so. So if you just hold fire, we'll get the next one over. Caroline, just to introduce you, Caroline, Core, one of the first one-stop shops who registered for the program. Caroline, my personal view, Caroline, she's a driving force in the retrofit industry. Myself and Caroline kind of stormed the early part of the one-stop shop service and looking at how the BER works and the whole automation behind it. Any issues that she came back with, it kind of informed how we had to proceed and ultimately making things easier and slicker and so forth. Core, we've done a QBR with Core. They have a huge on training methodology when they take new builders on board, making them very familiar with the SEAI spec before they go out and do the work, which is key to the whole quality drive for high standard. And so forth. And in terms of what Core are doing, they've been involved in our schemes for the past decade, and they've completed about 4,000 home upgrades. So there's excellent experience there, and so forth. And just to keep consistent, I was on their website in terms of the positive feedback that homeowners are providing. They said the whole process was easy, seamless, and Core retrofit had been great. They were good to deal with and very informative. They always told us what was going to happen, and so forth. And other people should take advantage of the deep retrofit scheme via Core. So that homeowner feedback is key. So it's honest feedback from homeowners who have been through that whole process and so forth. So Caroline, there you go.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Stephen, for that lovely introduction. I haven't been spoken that nice of in a long time. So my name is Caroline Ash-Brady, and I'm one of the founders of Core Retrofit. And I suppose what I'm here to talk to you today a little bit is, look, any time you start anything new, it's hard. But if you want to be part of this industry and you want to be part of the one-stop shop and you find where you fit in the industry, in the process, partner up with the best of people. And the first time you do, it's going to be hard. And guess what? The second time, it's not so hard. We started Retrofit, Core Retrofit. We started deep retrofit in 2014, and we learnt and fell and got up and fell and got up. And that's the key to all of this. Martin alluded to, we won't achieve our targets if we don't have the people. Well, I'd say to the people in this room, are you even in the circle? Because we will probably get closer to the targets if we all are part of it. So if you are a builder, or if you are an architect, or if you are a subcontractor into the system, if you actually become part of the system, then your contribution is one more number towards our target, which can be counted. So if you're not in, find a way in, and let's get moving. Core started 25 years ago. So we manufacture expanded polystyrene insulation products, and our real journey into retrofit started the last recession. We closed the curtains one night, crying into our eyes, going, Jesus, what are we going to do? New build is gone. And we just literally pivoted overnight, said we're going to go into retrofit. And that's what I'd say to anybody in this room that isn't in this space yet. It's just say you're going to do it and pivot, and maybe talk to me, maybe talk to Martin, maybe talk to the guys in Super Homes, and just get involved. We have done, as Stephen alluded to, we have done over 4,000 retrofits in Ireland since we started on this journey, and we work across border as well. So we're a one-stop shop. We work on the Better Energy Community Scheme. We're one of the contractors in the Warmer Home Scheme, and we also we're the first company in Northern Ireland to bring external wall insulation and heating upgrades. They're quite far behind where we are in deep retrofit in Northern Ireland, but we're the first company and are currently still the only company in that scheme in Northern Ireland delivering deep retrofit. I'm not going to go into our services, but what I want to say to you is, to everybody in this room, the services the One-Stop Shop offers aren't entirely different to what you actually do as an architect or a builder every single day. And because all it is a grouping of services to one person or one homeowner, a customer. So we all design an option, we all price it, we all deliver it on site, we all have the financial transaction, we all have the legals, we all have the paperwork, and we all have the close off and good night and good luck in the handover. And so whatever part of the job you're in, we all contribute and we all have part of it. But I don't know, Core Retrofit don't know how to design that extension. Core Retrofit don't install the works. We partner with the best of people that can do all those parts. What do Core Retrofit do? We understand retrofit standards and how to get the grant inside out and upside down. And so in everything you do, when you go to do something in your business, like bring in a new technology, you don't spend days and days and days and days and days trying to figure out how to become a software engineer, well, years. You bring in a software engineer. And so it's about partnering with each other. So what I'm going to go through with you, just some of the steps to success that we've found through working with the combination of Core with an architect, with the client, and with a builder, and how the four of us together can actually deliver something. And I'm going to, I suppose, talk to you a little bit about the pitfalls, and also conscious of the fact that Stephen had said 25 minutes, but I'm not going to do that, Stephen, okay? Yeah, well, so we'll hopefully wrap things up in 7 to 10 minutes. So the first thing on any success journey with the customer, when they decide that they're doing a building or extending their home, and the first protocol is probably not a one-stop shop. The first protocol is the designer, the architect, and that's who they're going to. And so the customer may very well come to the architect and say, look, I want to extend the house, but I also want to upgrade the existing house, and I want to get the grant. And so the architect at that point has an option. They tell the customer, I know nothing about grants, go off with you. Or go to the single grant market and figure it out. Or the architect can say, I have a one-stop shop partner and I can actually facilitate getting the grants for you. So this is where the architect, as an architect, you may think, well, actually, I'll add this facilitation to my service because I'm going to partner with somebody that can offer this service to the customer. The architect needs to understand the entire process. So in talking to the customer at the outset, just having that understanding of the process and what's required. And this is really important for the tender pack, because ultimately you want to inform the builder before they tender that they're in the club now as well. Don't bother tendering if you don't want to be in the club, and that's key. So it is there will be differences to the traditional process. The customer then as well, the customer needs to be informed. They'll have lots of questions. The ideal thing, if you're an architect and you have partnered with somebody like ourselves, is you bring us in really early. Say, right, customer, contact Core, reach out to our customer, organise a Teams call with them just to go through the process, because we're part of the professional team, if you like, in this journey for the customer. And it just, the customer will also want buy-in from the architect. If you're there and you believe that your customer should get the maximum amount of these grants that Dave spoke about, so another 14 grand, well, you have to buy into it. So the attitude has to be right. The attitude from the outset has to be, we can do it, we can overcome it. The first project will be hard, the next project will be grand. And to that point, it's important to prepare the homeowner for just what happens. It's also really important. The one-stop shop has that technical understanding, and around SEAI's technical standards, Part L, Part F would really come under our remit as well around ventilation. There's the SR 54, and you will also have the architect then with all the other parts of building regulations that you would typically be ensuring are specified on the new part of the building, Part D, and well, we're kind of all involved in all of the aspects. But the clear thing at the start, if we start at the outset getting the specification right together, architect and core, the specification follows the whole way through. It doesn't have to change. Where we find sometimes at the moment we're brought into a project, so the architect has done the design, done the specs, and then the tender pack, and then we're brought in, and then we say, okay, right guys, okay, you need to change this to get the grant, and you need to change this, and we'll move that over there, and now there's a little bit of confusion. It's not that it's not insurmountable, of course we can solve the problem, but if that's done at the early stage, and the spec is written exactly as the requirements that the grant require, and you bring all those minds together to achieve that. So what's really important is that as an architect or even a builder, at the very, very early stage when you're talking to your client, you're getting that pre-BER. It's critical. Where are we today? So this is outside of the extension doesn't exist at the moment, just looking at that current house. Where we stand today. And what the BER assessor and core then do is we say, okay, this is where we stand today. Give us those drawings for the new bit, existing house, new bit, and we're going to design the whole thing. So we're bringing the old and the new together as part of that home energy assessment. And now that's the spec that follows the house and follows the journey the whole way through. We've had issues where, I suppose, the contractor is part of the already contracted in. And when I say issues, it's frustrations that begin. So a contractor comes into the process and they have priced it, and now the customer wants the grant, and we're coming in, and as I mentioned, the specs changing, and that can cause real frustrations for people in a process because we're all so busy, and it just appears like it's this noise in our process. Oh goodness, what we found is we have builders and contractors saying, "No, I'm out, I'm not." And what I'd say to you is, if you are one of those people that's looking into, stick with it on the first job, because nothing that's new is really that easy. We're there to facilitate it, but the first time you do it, you'll learn, and the second time, and I know I've said this, I'm like going on, but that's the key message. The second time, you figured it out. You're now part of the process and you understand it. But what is really, really important, that technical part at the start for the architect going into your tender pack. So the contractor will be required to work within the grant system, to deliver the specs required by the grant, will be required to have subcontractors that are SEAI registered. And once at the outset the contractor sees what's expected of them, only those that are willing to deliver on that should be part of will tender. And if they do tender and they do win, well, it was all up front and everybody understands. And I suppose it's that clear expectation setting from the outset. So that, again, that follows in with this contractor engagement. Once the contractor, in some instances, an architect, what happens, and it's a little bit like the one-stop shop. We have a group of BER assessors and we have a group of main contractors we work with, and we all follow each other. Architects and builders are the same. You typically, as an architect, you'll have a couple of key builders you work with all the time and recommend to your clients, and that group of builders will tender for any jobs that you design. And so, again, you can navigate that tender pack part and say, well, let's get Core or one of the one-stop shops to talk to the builder earlier. So these are all my builders. Go talk to them. Explain the process. Get them to understand beforehand what's required so that when they see the tender pack, they don't go, oh, Jesus. No, not for us. Because the conversation and the story about how actually it is achievable is key. So what normally happens with the contractor, we have an onboarding system. So the contractor will basically go through some training. So contractors that haven't worked in retrofit before don't understand the program. So we have an online program that's run on Teachable. And basically those contractors are onboarded via that system. So the contractor gets up to speed really, really quickly with the technical specs required, what's going to be required of them on site, and they learn really, really, really quickly. And again, they're meeting the other team of people that they're going to be working with, which is, in our instance, Core. The additional contracts, I suppose, that this one is important, I suppose, for the architects in the room. So one of the questions we'd hear a lot of, well, should the architect have a contract with the one-stop shop? How should it work? And we don't overcomplicate it too much at the moment, okay? So the contracts that exist with the one-stop, we have a contract with the homeowner and we have a contract with the contractor. And I suppose and the contractor is responsible for their contract with their subcontractors. So like normally a building contractor has all the subbies they work with and they all move around like a pack from one job to another. And so how they figure things out together is their own business, if you like. And so the architect sees all of the roles and responsibilities Core has related to the contractor and the homeowner, and how that all comes together then actually offers the architect through the process extra reassurances. It's actually an additional PI insurance on the table because all the one-stop shops have to have PI insurance, so we're bringing that to the table as well. So you have the architect's PI insurance, you have the one-stop shops PI insurance, and then you have all the insurances of the contractor. And under our roles and responsibilities, the contractor must always take on the role of PSCS. So I suppose the other thing under the contracts is for every project we do, we're also inspecting the work. So we're speccing, we do a pre-start meeting, everybody, architect, builder, customer, and Core around the table, we make sure everybody's clear, we're ready to go, get-go, money's released, boom, we're on site. And what happens there is we do a mid-work inspection, a final inspection, and a snags on all of the aspects that are related to the grants works. So we're actually another layer of inspections and assurance in the process for the architect ultimately signing off on the project. And it's one of the things, I suppose, that people are a bit nervous about. Where does responsibility start and finish around this? Anything related to the grant works is the responsibility of the one-stop shop when it comes to design, inspection. The warranties under the one-stop shop, and in fairness to SEAI, they have us hamstrung. So if you're a one-stop shop, yeah, you are not walking away from any table. You are there till the bitter end with any product. And so we have year-long warranties on products and quality and what happens on these sites. The certification program, this is often music to the architect's ears. So that's a list of all of the, and it's not actually a full list, but that's a list of the certification that we provide in a handover pack at the end of every project. So it's the product warranties, the RECCE certs, NSAI certificates, declarations of conformity, installer certification, product data sheets, photographic evidence of everything that's happened throughout, U-value reports and commissioning certs. So we, as a one-stop shop, have to put that pack together and we hand it to SEAI and we hand it to the architect. And I know how much hassle that is. Because we do it every day now. So from the point of view of an architect, it actually lowers workload considerably at that part for all of those aspects of the one-stop shop process. We're actually working on methods where we can actually streamline all of this process so that to really simplify this process for the contractor as well, because we get to the end of the process and who has paperwork and everybody's hands up. And so in order to really ramp up one-stop shop, the paperwork issue has to be solved and we have to use technology. And why are we printing off and signing things and scanning things? Everything should be just e-sign and fire it on. And, you know, and so there's really simple ways of simplifying this process. I have mentioned already the quality inspections, and so I won't drone on at them again. But one of the things to note is at the end, all the snag reports, we manage the snags, the snag reporting. We have to get photographic evidence from the contractor that all the snags are complete. And then on top of that, for the homeowner and the architect, it's likely that it will go through an additional inspection from SEAI, and if there are any reworks from that, we manage that process as well. So from an architect's point of view, the level of snagging and reworks and paperwork that's actually done takes a huge amount of work away from the architect's part. I always say that in any walk of life, you know, the focus is on what you make your money on. So anybody in trade, if you're not on site delivering the trade, you're not actually making money. If you're not designing and turning out the drawings and the details, everything else is just layers of cost on top of your business. You have your centres where you're making your money, and if you're not at those, then it's just another cost centre. So the one-stop shop actually removes cost centres along the process for the architect and the contractor when we work well. The pain point, though, and one of the things we're working with SEAI on is the payments and the retentions. So there is a change to the usual architects, how architects would generally look for payments, make payments to the contractor. So there are some changes around that. And each of the one-stop shops, I don't know how each of the one-stop shops work, but we do things differently. And it's something that you can talk to us individually about. But there is a little bit, you need to have wriggle room on that. If you are dead set on how the payment structure happens for your business and for your clients, and without a bit of wriggle room there, then partnering with a one-stop shop is probably not going to be your space. We do hold a retention, but not only until SEAI's inspection is complete. We do work with architects that hold a traditional retention on the overall project till the end, but that would be not something that core retrofit, that's again outside. So the payment structures move within the one-stop shop, the client, or the one-stop shop and the contractor, and also move from the client to the contractor. So it's a little bit confusing at the moment. It's the only real point that can be a little bit, but we've worked on lots of projects. You can work through it, and it's just once everybody gets to know what's expected. But we're going to work with SEAI to try and simplify that process for everybody. And it's one thing to say. I'm going to finish by saying, Thank you for your time. If I wasn't a one-stop shop yet, what would I do? I'd probably partner with a one-stop shop and learn. And I don't say that, it's not like I want to create competition, but we've got to, Core can't deliver 50,000, 500,000 houses. How many? I've lost track of that. Like, I mean, Superhome's 35,000, they need to partner with us, you know? So we're not going to achieve it by ourselves. Engage. And while you're engaging and learning with Core, you might find that that's actually a really good partnership that works for your business, where you might decide, actually, yeah, no, I'm going to go the one-stop shop route myself. But in the meantime, we'll have worked together, we've grown something, and the industry overall evolves. So reach out to Core, and Stephen has my number, and the team in Core will be only too happy to engage with you if you would want to learn more from us. Okay, there, thanks.
Guys, I think it's a good time if there's any questions, just building on the momentum that Caroline generated, if you want to ask them now, it's probably a good time.
Sorry, thank you. Excellent. Just a few really quick ones. To do pre-qualification of tenders, what's the fee structure that you would charge if you're coming before you? And we're looking at the next generation of like the embodied carbon and sort of thinking of a holistic thing, or we just go by current regulations where we are, Sorry, I suppose I'm curious about the fees, your fee structure. In regards to the contract, like is it like an RIA contract, or what structure is the contract? For the building, yeah. Well, I'm a bit confused between the building contract. Traditionally is between the house owner. Okay? Tonight, Stuart, where that is between you and the builder. Does it? Thank you. How long are your projects generally? How many weeks ago? One more on site.
Any other questions, folks?
I work for Energy Communities Tipperary. Stephen is aware of our one-stop shop application should begin this year. We have a new general manager. My main question was to the first speaker about the call center capacity. Is that relevant to the amount of calls that's coming in, or is the standard fixed charge that you have with them? So you spoke about a lot of calls at the start, it's keeping out a little bit now. Are their charges relevant to the amount of calls they take, or is the set standard fee per month?
They set standard fee per call.
Per call. So if you're getting 100 calls a week,
Yeah.
you're able to
Paying for 100 calls.
And was that worth the expense? Because we spend a lot of time with very small office staff dealing with people on calls, tired people trying to weed out people that are really interested.
Well, I suppose like any one-stop shop starting out in a new process, we had to find a roadmap, and when we became registered, we made a conscious decision that we were going to get back to every client within 10 working days. It's not possible with a small staff, as we're a small and medium-sized company ourselves, to actually manage that contact, that initial contact. So that's why we hired a call center to make that initial contact. From the initial contact, we took over.
they just recently started to bring the technical assessments and the home energy assessments in-house. And hopefully that's going to speed it up, because now we're looking for just your standard BER assessors to go and do the BERs for us. But it is a big issue. It's something hopefully we can discuss with the SEAI in the coming months, because I think it is a stumbling block in going from where your call comes in, your lead generated, you were really, really interested client, and it is 3-4 months before you can actually get on the ground. And it's just piling up with home energy assessments, and we're not actually getting up to doing what we should be doing, is getting contracts over the line. And I think if we've reduced it from 8 to 10 weeks, and I'd say, well, by the end of this month, we'll have it down to between 3 and 4 by bringing it in-house.
And do you think that there's an opportunity in the industry there of providing an external service of a technical assessment with a costing package to you guys? I know that's how we need some kind of a partnership with you guys.
Definitely. The more people on board, the better. As I said, one of my big messages today is the lack of resources within the industry. The issue that I do have is the quality standard. Because I'm coming personally myself from being that one-stop shop, doing the work, understanding the technical guidance stuff. Being a BER assessor myself in my past, so I understand it. And when you're getting the results back and you just look and say, well, we got to go and do that again. You know? Are you getting B2s?
Okay.
I got recently got a B2 coming into my house to do an assessment, and the times we were saying to the client, you're at B2, where are you going? And he said, well, I'm freezing. So when we actually assessed it, the house was a D2. So that's slowing our process down. So I think when the SEAI get on board with this and the quality standards of the BER assessments get better, we're going to be in a much better place.
Nice, yeah.
And do we have standard templates then for the HTA?
There-
I know at the start.
Yeah, there is standard templates, and what I think we'll do is the Slido function is there, and we've all the numbers of Caroline and Martin up on the website, and we're grand to touch base afterwards. I'm just conscious that it's touching past 4, and I just want to fly through these 2 slides in case people are thinking of registering and so forth. But that whole session there was invaluable in terms of that investigation work companies are doing to see how things work, and then see how things are applied on the ground in terms of you assessing the whole call centre action and roles and what you need to set up and so forth, because it means you've considered, and that feeds into your strategic plan and what you're going to submit. So it's excellent to see that. In terms of registering to be a one-stop shop, and we're trying to, our aim is to get people successfully through the process and not to be intimidated by the strategic plan. I've only two slides here, and I'll go through them in 5 minutes. This document, which is on our website, it's the Operational Quality Requirements Guide. It's on our website under Register to be a one-stop shop. That's 85% of what you need to be registered to be a one-stop shop. If what's in there is transferred into the strategic plan, you're 85% there. Okay, the rest is the vision and mission statement and how you approach IT security and so forth. It's a 15-page document. It's very applied. It covers resources, customer care, works assessment, QMS, continual improvement, and so forth. It states your approach, your output, so what logs need to be in place, what actions need to be in place, what you need to be considering, and what metrics you need to be looking at. Okay, so the first thing I would do is I would print off that document. It's 15 pages, it's very applied. Engage the right people from the start. So we're saying you don't need ISO 9001 to become a one-stop shop. All you need is an ISO expert to say that you've met the requirements in this document, okay? And I would also look at how you manage the whole one-stop shop from a project management perspective. And it's not project managing a job from start to finish. It's looking at it from your overall business and administration side as well. So sometimes if you see in your organization who's expert in those areas, or you maybe engage them for a half a day to pick their brains, tell them what you're about, it can be worth its weight in gold in terms of navigating through the stage 2 process and giving them key pieces of information. There's real force and pressure on us now to get able and qualified and competent providers through the system and up on the register, okay? So we've intensified our support to be more proactive. So we have sessions on stage 1 that you can book in with us for a half an hour to an hour, and we've sessions on stage 2 you can book into us for an hour if it needs another an hour or 3 hours or whatever, just to help people through the whole process. So that's what you should be considering to try and move your strategic plan. Don't be stuck in a particular area wondering what I need to do. Arrange a Microsoft Teams call with us and get the whole process working. Okay, so that's the first slide. Then a few tips that we have from looking through 35, 40 strategic plans, some very good, some not so good. And a lot of it is kind of common sense. And it's all driven through this document. We're looking for the applied approach, how you're going to do it, how your business is going to do it, as opposed to the theory. An example is that we all know what a risk is. We all know the probability multiplied by the likelihood and so forth. We all know the theory behind that, but we want to make sure that you're telling us that you're applying a risk assessment in your organization and you're showing us, say, a snapshot of your risk register. And this is how we do it. We don't want to see loads of theory behind it and an empty risk register, a template that has never been used before. That screams to us it's not applied and you're just showing us what we want and there's nothing in it, so it's not active. Realistic outputs. So we're going to look for outputs in terms of what you're going to deliver in year 1, 2 and 3. Okay? There might be a tendency to overreach, but be realistic. Okay? If it's 16, 20, 35, whatever it is, put in the accurate number that you feel is achievable, because we'll be doing QBRs and we'll be coming back to you in terms of your strategic process and how you're performing. Okay? And I suppose the more output you put on year 1, we'll be assessing your resources to reflect that. And it means you could come back with questions to see, is this real? How are you going to get the supply chain? All that type of thing. So be realistic about your output numbers. Cash flow demands. You have to front load a 25k grant. Okay, you could have 10 houses on the go. So that'd be $250,000. We need to know, you need to prove to us that you're able to manage that and provide the necessary documentation. We have a number of people on the evaluation panel that have to be satisfied and that they have a strong governance and oversight from a financial perspective, and we don't want to be giving contracts to companies that can't manage that grant up front. I've covered the risk register. In terms of leads, customers and resources, do what you were doing there. Engage with the one-stop shops to get a sense of activity. Like talking to one-stop shop out there today, they said they got 200 leads through their web form. So they have per week. So they have to have resources in place to manage that sufficiently. So all this lead management. So you have to think, how many people do I need in a call center? How many of them will transfer to HEAs? How many BR assessors do I need to satisfy that HEA demand? How many of the HEAs typically transfer to home energy upgrades? And look at your resources flowing down from that. And think logically. We don't. What we want to do is understand, okay, you have 2 project managers for year 1, okay? You're delivering 20 homes, but you still have 2 project managers for year 2, and you're delivering 60 homes. That's an alarm saying, well, what's going on there? But we could talk to the person during the feedback stage, and they says, oh, well, we're opening up capacity here. One of those project managers weren't actually working on the program, and they're more focused on it. So that explains how they haven't increased their PM number. But at scales. So just tell us the logic behind your numbers and how you're going to proceed and how they're going to grow over the next 24 months. And then give us your KPIs, how you're going to monitor performance in terms of the number of HEAs coming through, the number of leads coming through, the number of outputs you're going to do per quarter. Because that gives us a sense you're responsible here and you're managing the whole activity. You'll see, okay, we're off target. What are we going to do in quarter 3 to bring that back up at the par? So it's the whole applied logical approach. Don't assume we know what you're doing with your project managers. We know that you're going to bring in new staff. Tell us everything and explain the logic. Quality manager over equal or against technical manager as such. They're 2 different roles. The quality manager should have a high-level role within the company so they can influence the whole processes and how the company is doing its work, the standards, how the system runs, and they have the power to inform different departments on what they need to do, and apply adequate oversight. So that's a role that should be up at a kind of a management level. The technical manager side, and that could be the quality control side, I'd see that as another function where they go out and they look at works completed, and they complete the audits and the sign-offs and so forth. So that's two items that we need you to pull out and focus in on and not have it mushed into one role, and explain. And as I said before, to scale and do more homes every year, we can only take people on that are taking quality management systems seriously and have a dedicated resource in place and are proving to us that they're taking it seriously and they want to continuously improve. The last 4 points there, lead management is key, huge demand for the programme. If issues are cropping up, the public are frustrated, it comes back through media queries, TD queries, on different platforms. We had an issue from the pack there going back 2 weeks that we had to deal with. We need people to have proper lead management systems in place. And that could be simple aspects like the scheme is for 2010 and older homes, that there's some sort of flag at the start. So you're controlling that funnel before it even gets to your customer care line and how you do it. So give adequate attention to how you're managing your leads, because, as I said, you're getting 60 calls a week. It could be 200 web form interests, and we need to have the assurances that you can manage your leads adequately. End-to-end service delivery process flows. Process flow is much more beneficial over 3 pages of text. Okay, so your service delivery process flow and your project management process flow, and a light narrative underneath it explaining maybe what's not clear. Not 3 or 4 pages of how you're going to apply service delivery, not 3 or 4 pages how you're going to project manage. You can add text to it, but put a lot of emphasis into the process flow and bring terminologies like the HEA, that you've actually done your homework in terms of what are the different aspects of the program, how it's delivered and so forth. Standard operating procedures, there's plenty of them in here. One standard operating procedure that we see really important is, and it kind of echoes what Martin, David and Carolyn were saying, is how are we going to get the supply chain on board? How are we going to get good quality people to work for us? So a standard operating procedure would be is how you identify them, how you assess their competencies, and how you train them. Okay? Standard operating procedures are key because they control the daily activity, and they give you the headspace. Everyone knows what they're doing, what they're responsible for, and they give you the headspace to think how my company's going to grow. We'll go down that avenue, test that out, continue to grow, continue to scale, and so forth. Your head isn't buried in the day-to-day task, we have to firefight this, we have to firefight that, and so forth. GDPR, homeowner data. We're seeing a lot of good applications coming through, really competent providers centering that around the CRM. You're collecting a lot of personal data from homeowners. Their clients at the end of the day, you could be collecting their MPRN, payment details and so forth. It's important that you show to us that you're taking that seriously and you have a system in place to manage and control that. The GDPR regulations are so tight and strong now that we need to just get the assurances that you have a good understanding of that and so forth. And the last thing, and it's probably the simplest thing, make sure you proofread your application. We see applications coming through with different company names in them, and it obviously wasn't proofread, and it totally undermines the application. We see applications coming through where graphs are overly cropped, so axes are cut out, all that type of thing. Like, a number of us are on the evaluation panel, and some of us could be forgiven, but we have people in different parts of SEAI coming from different angles with different aspects and areas that they hone in on, and they say, how can people manage these contracts if they can't proofread an application and take it seriously enough to ensure that the graphs are correctly presented? And so it's a presentation thing, but that can be half the battle half the time. If it's presented in a professional manner, proofread, and it's concise, and it ticks all the boxes. That's the key document there. 80% of your success will be driven from that. Link in with the necessary quality experts and PM experts, and you'll see the outputs and deliverable parts of those in bullet point format. That's how you prove to us that you're applying all the quality requirements and submit that in your application. I know I kind of raced through that, but I'm conscious that it's getting late and so forth. Is there any questions or anything on that? Shoot.
Right, okay, so as Martin there said, I'm Martin of the
Yeah.
already done loads of stuff. And so with the QMS stuff all done, ready to rock and roll, application, except that now I'll be talking to Caroline and Cora as to how they
Brilliant.
whittle down the questions to get rid of as many tire kickers as possible. So from getting a good application into you now, what's the lead-in time then? Like a perfect application arrives in, what's the lead-in time from that arriving in GE to,
We review every Tuesday and Thursday. That's a priority, and that's driven from the top down to us level. We have to prioritise getting one-stop shops on the list. And we're questioned what's the delay. So there's all eyes on this, so it's a priority. So I wouldn't be worried about lengthy approval times and so forth. We'll come back with feedback if needs be within 2 to 3 days. Nazia has her way, she'll be pushing me. We'll get the feedback in the next 24 hours. So there's no problem there in terms of turnaround time with feedback and so forth. What I would do is I would arrange a call, a Microsoft team call with ourselves as well prior to submitting. Okay. Any other questions, folks? Is it all clear? The email address is there. If you're thinking, if anything comes to mind afterwards, I'd just like to thank David, Caroline and Martin for their input. It's been brilliant. How it's applied, how you're navigated through the challenges has been absolutely excellent. Thanks for the time and so forth. And thanks for attending, guys, and listening.